Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier were once the glittering heart of the British stage, an iconic couple whose love seemed to shine as brightly as their talent. To the public, their marriage was the epitome of glamour, passion, and artistic brilliance. But behind the dazzling performances and red carpet appearances lay a private world of emotional chaos, intense desire, and a love that could not survive the weight of a fragile mind. Vivien Leigh's life was marked by brilliance and suffering, and her relationship with Olivier became the central stage upon which her tragedy unfolded. When she finally confessed the secrets behind their divorce, it wasn't scandal she revealed, but the heartbreaking truth of a woman trapped in her own mind. This is the story of Vivien Leigh, an extraordinary actress, a troubled soul, and the woman whose love for Olivier could not outlast her illness. A privileged childhood, a complex identity. Vivien Leigh was born Vivien Mary Hartley on November 5, 1913, into a wealthy Anglo-Indian family. Her father, Ernest Hartley, was a British broker, while her mother, Gertrude Yakir, came from Irish and Armenian roots. From an early age, Vivien displayed a hunger for literature and performance. She recited poetry and acted in school plays, already hinting at the stage presence that would later captivate the world. Educated in convent schools across Europe, France, Italy, and Germany, she grew into a cosmopolitan young woman, fluent in several languages. This early exposure to different cultures shaped her elegance, poise, and refined beauty, qualities that became her trademark. She was a woman who looked like she belonged to the highest circles of society, yet her inner life was restless and searching. Her upbringing gave her confidence, but also a deep sense of isolation. The first marriage, a dream that didn't fit. At 19, Vivien Leigh married Herbert Lee Holman, a respected London barrister 13 years her senior. Their marriage began as a conventional union, stable, respectable, and safe. But it quickly became clear that Vivien was not meant for a quiet life. She had already begun studying at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, RADA, and her passion for theater clashed with Holman's conservative values. He disapproved of the stage and refused to support her ambitions. Feeling stifled and controlled, Vivien left RADA prematurely and drifted further from the life her husband wanted. The couple had a daughter, Suzanne, in 1933, but Vivien's growing career pulled her away from domestic responsibilities. The emotional distance widened and the marriage began to crumble. Vivien was not cruel. She simply could not live in a world that denied her purpose. Her ambition, talent, and need for freedom could not be contained by a conventional marriage. A scandalous love begins meeting Olivier. In 1937, Vivien Leigh began a passionate affair with Laurence Olivier, the charismatic British actor she had met years earlier. Their romance ignited during the filming of Fire Over England, and it quickly became the subject of public fascination and scandal. Both were married at the time, Vivien to Holman, Olivier to actress Jill Esmond. Divorce was still taboo and legally difficult, making their relationship controversial and dangerous. But their love was unstoppable. They chose to defy convention, living together, and even traveling to the United States to escape judgment and continue their careers. Their decision to cohabit without marriage shocked many, yet they remained committed. It wasn't until 1940, after a long and emotionally draining legal battle, that both were finally granted divorces. Their marriage on August 31, 1940, in Santa Barbara, was a private ceremony attended by only a few friends, including Katharine Hepburn. The world saw a glamorous union. Behind the scenes, the first cracks were already forming. The rise of a star, Scarlett O'Hara, and the world's admiration. Vivien Leigh's rise to fame was meteoric. Her breakthrough came in 1939 when she was cast as Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. The choice of a British actress for the quintessential Southern belle was controversial, but Vivien silenced critics with her performance. She brought intensity, vulnerability, and raw power to Scarlett, turning the character into a living, breathing woman, flawed, fierce, and unforgettable. The film became a cultural landmark, and Vivien became an international icon overnight. Her portrayal of Scarlett remains one of the most enduring in cinema history, and she earned her first Academy Award for Best Actress. The success catapulted her into the highest ranks of Hollywood, but also increased the pressure on her personal life. Fame amplified her inner struggles, while Olivier's own ambitions began to compete with hers. Their marriage, once passionate, slowly shifted into a battleground where love and rivalry fought for control. The stage power couple, Shakespeare and strain Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier, became one of the most celebrated theatrical couples of their time. Their joint performances in Hamlet, Macbeth, Antony and Cleopatra, and The School for Scandal were praised as revolutionary. Together, they pushed the boundaries of Shakespearean performance, blending raw emotion with classic beauty. Yet their partnership was not only creative, it was a constant emotional struggle. Vivien's mental health began to worsen, and her mood swings grew unpredictable. Olivier, brilliant and demanding, struggled to cope with her intensity. The pressure of fame and the constant demands of the stage created an environment where love could not survive without breaking. Vivien's brilliance became both a blessing and a curse. Her performances were extraordinary, but her emotional instability made her unpredictable. Olivier's love remained, but his patience grew thin. Their marriage was no longer a partnership of equals, but a fragile alliance held together by art. A second Academy Award, Blanche Dubois and the Mirror of Madness. In 1951, Vivien Leigh delivered her second career-defining performance as Blanche Dubois in A Streetcar Named Desire. The role was a devastating portrait of a woman collapsing under her own delusions and trauma, and it mirrored Vivien's own inner struggles. Her performance was raw, fragile, and terrifyingly real. She earned her second Academy Award for Best Actress, cementing her legacy as one of the greatest actresses of all time. But this triumph came at a cost. The role drained her emotionally and physically, and her mental health deteriorated further. She began experiencing severe mood swings, depression, and mania. Her illness became impossible to hide. Olivier, once her greatest supporter, began to feel trapped by her instability. He was no longer just her husband. He became her caretaker, her judge, and her prison guard. Their marriage began to crumble under the weight of Vivien's illness and Olivier's growing resentment, the hidden desires, compulsion, affairs, and chaos. Vivien Leigh's bipolar disorder did more than cause mood swings. It unleashed uncontrollable impulses, particularly in intimacy. During manic episodes, she sought physical connection with desperate urgency. She pursued affairs with men of all backgrounds, including cab drivers and strangers, often acting without shame or caution. Her fame blurred the lines between propriety and compulsion. Her sexual appetite was not about preference, but about escape, about filling an emptiness that no human touch could satisfy. Rumors also circulated of romantic and sexual relationships with women, suggesting a fluidity driven by hunger rather than identity. These affairs were not occasional. They were frequent and chaotic, often multiple in a single day. Olivier's love was no match for her compulsions. He grew exhausted and emotionally drained. The marriage began to feel less like a romance and more like a struggle to contain a storm. The final collapse, tuberculosis, miscarriage, and the asylum. Vivien's life was not only haunted by mental illness. In 1943, while volunteering in North Africa during World War II, she contracted tuberculosis. She was hospitalized, discharged as recovered, but the infection lingered for years. In 1945, while filming Caesar and Cleopatra, she suffered a fall that caused a miscarriage, plunging her into a deep depression. Her behavior became increasingly erratic. She screamed at cast members, stormed off sets, and spent hours sobbing in her dressing room. Eventually, Olivier, desperate and frightened, had her committed to a mental institution in England. There, she underwent electroconvulsive therapy, an invasive and brutal treatment that left lasting scars on her memory and mind. It was a cruel and common method of the time, often causing more harm than healing. Her breakdowns continued, becoming more severe. On one occasion, she wandered naked through London streets. On another, she attacked Olivier with a wet towel, forcing him to restrain her. Their marriage was no longer love, it was survival. Outro: the love that could not heal. After more than 20 years, Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier's marriage ended. Olivier moved on to actress Joan Plowright, while Vivien found love and stability in actor Jack Merivale. Though she never remarried, Merivale cared for her until her final days. Olivier reportedly told him, "Take care of her," recognizing that Vivien's illness would never fully disappear. On July 7, 1967, Vivien collapsed in her room and died, her body worn down by tuberculosis and a lifetime of emotional struggle. She was cremated, and her ashes scattered in a Sussex lake. Vivien Leigh's legacy is not only her brilliance on stage and screen, but the tragic truth of a woman who loved deeply, suffered silently, and was destroyed by a mind she could not control. The secrets behind her divorce are not scandal. They are a reminder that even the brightest stars can be broken by the darkness within.